Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. So in this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months or 3 weeks leading up to it, because you're going to retire soon. And you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do you need to know? And what do you need to do? So I'm going to get you some answers to those questions. We're going to do it in the form of this checklist. So I've organized the presentation into a checklist. So this is your pre-retirement checklist. I'm going to help you understand your membership, and we'll talk about some of the details of that. I'll help you estimate your retirement benefit. I will help you verify your retirement eligibility and choose your retirement date, and tell you about the application process to retire. So I'll help you understand that. I'm also going to help you understand the other benefits that we offer, like medical, dental, vision. We'll talk about a few life events, and then I'll talk about signing up for Acera News. And so that's the full checklist. That'll take us probably 3 hours. So let's jump right in to the first item, understanding your membership. So who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But Acera is made up of a lot of people. And there are about 90 of us that work at Acera. And what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. And so that's all of you. So you all are members of Acera. And you're members of Acera because of the job that you work in. So you work, or at some point you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position, and you work for one of our 6 participating employers, including Alameda County, which is our biggest employer. So because you're working for one of these public agencies in this full-time retirement eligible position, that automatically makes you an Acera member. So you are also part of Acera. So then how does Acera work? You're here, and you as an employee, as an active employee, every time you get your paycheck, you contribute a portion of your paycheck into Acera's fund. And every time that happens, your employer also makes a contribution on your behalf. So we take that money and we invest it all over the world in a lot of different types of investments, and we earn interest on the money in Acera's fund. And so these 3 sources of income, your contributions, your employer's contributions, and us earning interest on the investments that we make, give us this big pot of money that we call Acera's fund, the Acera fund. So what do we do with that money? Well, as you are working, you're earning credit toward retirement. As you're going into your job and doing your work, you earn credit toward retirement. And then at some point in the future, which is probably why you're in this seminar, you will get to retire. And after you retire, you are going to get a lifetime monthly retirement allowance. So that means that every month for the rest of your life after retirement, you're going to get a check from Acera. And that's going to happen for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. And I say check, but really it's going to be a direct deposit right into your bank account. So let me tell you about to kind of dig in deeper to Acera a little bit. Let me tell you about the some of these milestones. This is kind of like a nice way to view your career in regards to Acera. These are your pension milestones. So this is kind of like a high-level view. So the first milestone is your date of hire. This is the first day that they told you to show up to work if you started out in your full-time retirement eligible position. If you started out in some other capacity, like you started out part-time, or you started out like as a project worker or as a seasonal worker, for example, this first day, this date of hire would be the first day in your full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, then 2 weeks goes by. The first day of your second pay period, that is your date of entry into Acera. And that is the day that you start earning credit toward retirement. And 5 years goes by. If you work full-time for 5 years, you earn 5 years of service credit. And after you have 5 years of service credit, you are considered vested in the retirement system. So that's your vesting day. Vested just means it just means guaranteed. So when you are vested in the system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're guaranteed the guaranteed benefits, basically. And those are guaranteed by state law. So that happens after 5 years of service credit. The next milestone is at some point after you're vested, you become eligible to retire. And it has to do with how many years of service credit you have and what age you are. And there's a few different configurations that give you eligibility to retire, which we'll talk about later. But once you reach that retirement eligibility date, the date that you're eligible to retire, after that, you can retire, or you could retire on that day. So you are going to choose a retirement date some point after you become eligible to retire. You're going to choose a retirement date. So we don't choose your retirement date for you. And then this is the date that you will actually retire, and you will start receiving your lifetime monthly retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Okay, there's 2 more dates on here. And so the first one is your death. Sorry about that. That's inevitable. The reason it's on here is because this is the day that your retirement payments stop. So you're going to earn your lifetime retirement allowance for the rest of your life until the date of your death. And the reason that this other date is on here, continuance beneficiary death, is if you name a beneficiary for a continuing payment after your death, they could actually get a beneficiary payment every month for the rest of their life until they die. And so I have to throw these 2 milestones on here, even though they're morbid, because it has to do with you getting your complete benefits that you've earned. And then I got a question here, and this is in regards to the 5-year vesting date. And the question is, I don't have 5 years of service credit with a SARA, I'm assuming, but I have reciprocity with CalPERS. So vesting, actually, you're correct in what you're thinking. Vesting actually includes 5 years combined with any service you have with reciprocal agencies, like CalPERS is one of the agencies that you can establish reciprocity with the SARA and link the systems together. So if you had 3 years of service credit with CalPERS, you stop that job, then you come over to a SARA and you earn 2 years of service credit, you're considered vested in both systems because those systems are linked together with the reciprocity. Okay, so those are your pension milestones. Okay, now one of the things that you saw in the email that you received with the link is that there is it asked you to download, I think there was a link in the email that asked you to download the worksheet. And let me just show you the full worksheet real fast. There we go. So this is the retirement planning worksheet. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, the way to get to it is you go to our website, you go under news and events, and you go down to retirement planning seminars, which is this page. And it's here under the pre-retirement seminar worksheet. And what this is your takeaway from this webinar. I've been doing this presentation for a lot of years, and I've had people come up to me, especially when we were doing it live, they would come up to me afterward and say something like, oh, this seminar was great. I understand all this stuff that I never understood before. It's my 3rd time coming. And I started to get to thinking, well, if you had to come 3 times, was it really that memorable? Did I really do a good job like giving you something to go home with in terms of your understanding of how this stuff works? So this is your takeaway, this pre-retirement planning worksheet. So you can fill it out as we go along. It's not fillable online. You'll have to print it out to fill it out, or you could just, fill it out on a scratch sheet of paper. But what my hope is for this is, as we go along and you learn things about your retirement, you can fill in the specific numbers for you regarding your specific retirement situation. And then when you come back a few months later or a few years later and you're kind of like scratching your head trying to re-remember what you learned, this is it. So these are all the things that you learned. Okay. So let me go back to the presentation. So regarding this My Career Timeline section of the worksheet, since we have already determined what your SARA entry date is, the first day of your second pay period, if you happen to know what that is, or know something like close to what that is, an approximate date, so you don't have to get exact with these. If you just simply remember it's like November of the year 2000, you could put that in, or if you just remember it's the year 2000, you can put that in. And then if at this point you know, you have an idea of what your projected retirement date is, you could go ahead and put that in here. If you don't know, I have a whole series of slides on helping you choose your retirement date later. Also, you may want to write this in pencil because you may hear something during the webinar that makes you change your mind about your projected retirement date a little bit. Okay. So real quick about vesting, I already mentioned that it happens after 5 years of full-time service credit, or full-time equivalent service credit. And it just means that you're guaranteed the guaranteed benefits that are guaranteed by state law. The guaranteed benefits, the vested benefits, are that lifetime monthly retirement allowance, an annual cost of living increase to that retirement allowance, and this $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now, there's additional death benefits based on the retirement allowance that you choose, and those are kind of wrapped up with this retirement allowance here. So we'll talk about those in the second half of the presentation. But this is kind of the basic lump sum death benefit. So now that you know what your vesting date is, which is basically if you worked full time from your entry date, it's basically 5 years after this date. So you could go ahead and put that in. The vesting date is not super important. So if you don't quite, if you can't quite figure out exactly what that is, don't worry about it. Okay, so here's another feature of your membership, is that you all are in one of these tiers. If you're a safety member, you might even have 2 tiers, okay? So the way to figure out what your tier is, it's based on your date of entry into a SARA. So if you entered a SARA at a certain date, it puts you in a certain tier, okay? So the first thing that I'll show you is that you have general members. This is one of our participating employers, the Housing Authority, and then you have safety members. Safety members are sheriff's deputies, probation officers, and other sworn officers. So if you're a safety member, you know it. If you're not a safety member, then you're a general member. So this is general members for the Housing Authority. And actually, excuse me, Livermore Area Recreational Parks District has a separate line. So if there's any Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District people watching, sorry I didn't put that on here, but if you go to our tier page on our website, there's a timeline for you that helps you find your tier. So for general members, let me show you how to find your tier. Okay, July 1st, 1983 is the cutoff for tier 1. So if you entered a SARA before that date, you're in tier 1. If you entered a SARA on that date, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, you're in tier 2. If you entered a SARA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, then you're in tier 4 as a general member. Same thing for Housing Authority, except the tier 1 cutoff is a lot later. So if you entered before September 30th, 2011, that puts you in tier 1. And then after that is tier 2 up to January 1st, 2013, and that puts you in tier 4. Now for safety members, the tier 1 cutoff date is July 1st, 1983. So you had to enter before to be in tier 1. And then there's a few tier 2s in here. So tier 2B went all the way up until October 16th, 2010. So after that, you would be in tier 2C or tier 2D, and the one that you're in depends on what selection you made at the time. You had to make a selection within your first 45 days of membership in as a safety member. If you didn't make a selection, you were defaulted into whatever the lower tier is that pays the lesser of those two. So that's how that works. And then again, tier 4, January 1st, 2013 and beyond. Okay, so let me see. I have a question. If my first date of work is October 6th, then my average entry date is October 20th or 21st. So it would be, so if your date of hire is October 6th, then let's see. So it would be the 20th. Likely it would be the 20th, but it's really the first day of your second pay period, so it would depend on your pay schedule. But that's how it works. If October 6th was a Monday, and then October 20th is also a Monday, then the first day of your second pay period would be, and you work Monday through Friday, then October 20th would be your date of entry. Now, that's just doing it through like memory. If you really want to know what your date of entry is, there's an easy way to find it. If you log into your account on our website, you can, it'll tell you what your date of entry is that we have in our database for you. If you've never done that, you can just still go to our website, click the login button in the upper right corner, and you can create an account, and your data is there waiting for you once you create your account. And so you can see what your date of entry is. Okay, so that is how you find your tier. Okay, so now that you know what tier you're in, you can go ahead and mark that on your worksheet. If you're a safety member, you may have done some general work before your safety membership. You could just mark both tiers on the sheet, or if you want to do one worksheet for each tier, you could do it that way as well. The way your retirement calculation is going to work is we're going to do a calculation using the service credit and H factor percentage, which will make sense in a minute, for your general work, your general membership, and then we'll do another calculation for your safety membership. And those will both give us dollar amounts, and we'll add them together and send you one check. Okay, let me help you estimate your retirement benefit. And by doing that, let me help you understand how we're going to calculate your retirement benefit. So here is our pension formula. Oh yeah, sure. I'm so sorry. I got a comment about not moving my cursor so much. I will try to minimize that and slow it down. Okay, so in retirement, you are going to get a percentage of the highest salary that you were making while you were working. And you're going to get that percentage of your salary for each year of service, that service credit that you've earned. So let me give you an example. Let's say that the percent of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2% in this example. And let's say that you have worked for 20 years. So 20 years of service credit. So you've earned 20 years of service credit. You are going to get 2% of your salary, your highest salary, for each one of those 20 years. That means that you're going to get 40% of your highest salary in retirement, the highest salary that you were earning as a working employee. Okay. Let's say that your salary, while you were working, your highest average salary was $5,000 per month. Okay. You're going to get 40% of that in retirement. in this example, which would be $2,000. So this would be your retirement allowance. But that percentage is not going to be exactly 2%. It's going to be a percentage based on your age at retirement and what tier you're in. So let me tell you about each one of those 3 factors in the retirement formula in a little more detail, and I'll talk about the age factor percentage first. Okay, so the percentage that you're going to get is, number 1, is going to be based on your tier. Okay, so you find your tier on this chart, and you can just forget about all the other columns. Okay, so if you're a general tier 2 member, you would just be looking at this column right here. Now, let's say that you're a general tier 2 member and you're going to retire at age 60. So we're going to come over, when we go to calculate your retirement, we're going to come over to this chart. We're going to come down to this column. We're going to go down to age 60, 1.92%. That's the percentage that you're going to get in the formula for you. That is the percentage of your highest average salary that you're going to get for each year of service. Okay. Now you may notice a few things about this chart. One of them is that the numbers get bigger the older you are when you retire. So the longer you wait to retire, the older your age, the higher the percentage you're going to get for each year of service, the higher the percentage of your salary, up to a maximum for each one of the tiers. And so that's what the blue box represents, is whatever the maximum age factor percentage that you can achieve for each tier. So if you retired at age 65 as a general tier 2 member, you would get 2.43%. If you retired at 66 or 67 or 77, you would still get that 2.43%. So the percentages stop increasing once you reach the maximum age for your tier. Now, another thing that you'll notice is I skipped a bunch of the ages. So there's big gaps here. And that's because there's so many percentages, they don't fit on the chart. And they actually increase with every quarter year. So if this were the full chart, it would say 50, 50 and a quarter, 50 and a half, 50 and 3/4, 51, and so on and so forth. And there would be a little incremental increase for each one of those 3 months that you don't retire. And the percent increase, the 3 months, is based on your birthday. So if your birthday, for example, is January 15th, 3 months after your birthday is April 15th. 3 months after that is July 15th. 3 months after that is October 15th. Then 3 months after that is back to your birthday. So every time you pass one of those days and you don't retire, you go up a little bit. You go up 1 notch in this chart. You get a slightly higher age factor percentage. So that's how that works. If you want to see what the full set of age factor percentages are, you can find that on our website. If you go to acera.org/age, or if you just search for that on our website, I think it's also on the publications page. Okay, so I think I saw a raise hands, but we're gonna use the Q&A feature. So if you want to go ahead and type your question in the Q&A, I can, if you want to, during the break time, I will. I'll address. I'll unmute you and let you ask the questions orally. But yeah, for now, go ahead and type those into the Q&A. And also after the presentation, I'll unmute you and we can talk about any of the rest of the questions that you have. Okay, so let me tell you about service credit next. So we talked about the age factor percentage. So let's talk about years of service credit. So you will start earning service credit on this day, your date of entry into Acera. And you're going to continue to earn service credit all the way up until the day that you retire. Or if you stop working early and don't retire yet, that would be your termination date. And so you would earn service credit up until the day that you terminate. But a lot of people go straight into retirement. And so you earn service credit all the way up until the termination date, which is the day before your retirement. You earn service credit during your regular work hours. So as you're working, you're earning service credit. You also earn service credit for when you're out on your earned vacation, when you're out on your earned sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. So all that type of leave, you're already earning service credit for, so that those don't count against you. You don't earn service credit for any time you're out because of leave without pay. If you purchase additional vacation on top of your earned vacation, you don't earn service credit while you're out on the purchased vacation. If you sell vacation, you don't earn service credit for the sold vacation, but if you're getting paid for the vacation during the salary period where we're using to calculate your salary for the retirement calculation, you may get salary credit for that, which we'll talk about when we talk about the salary component of the formula. So hang on to those questions. And then you also don't earn service credit for overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Now, there are some types of time, and some of them are listed out on this slide, that are eligible for you to purchase as service credit. And those include any part-time work where you didn't earn service credit, and that a lot of that is usually where you started out part-time. And I'm not talking about when you were working for a temporary agency or you were working under contract. This is just like plain old part-time. You started out part-time, you didn't earn service credit for that, and so that becomes purchasable. There's some employees that worked part-time long ago before we made it mandatory that if you went down to part-time, you continued earning service credit, and maybe you didn't earn service credit for some of that part-time work. If you worked for the county's temporary assignment pool, that's purchasable. Project work before your full-time job, that's purchasable. There's some other categories in there. The days between your date of entry, your date of hiring and date of entry, those 2 weeks. Unpaid medical leave, disability, and military insurance leave upon returning from that leave is purchasable. Redeposits of prior memberships, and that includes if you got divorced and your ex-spouse took part of your service credit, but then they took a refund, you can redeposit that money to get your service credit back. And if you worked for another agency in California. So these are just some of the types of time. I don't have time during this presentation to dig deep into purchasing service credit, but there's a lot of information about it out on our website. And also, if you want to check out the recordings of our new employee / mid-career seminar, I go into a lot of detail about purchasing service credit on that seminar. And so you can get to our purchase webpage here. But that will increase your amount of service credit for the formula. Okay, one more thing I want to say about service credit is about your unused sick leave at retirement. So what happens to your unused sick leave? Well, if you go straight into retirement, which means that your last day of work is the day before your last day of work, or active employment status is the day before your first day of retirement, which is your retirement date. This means that you're going straight from active work into retirement, and we will convert your sick leave to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. So you'll basically get half of your sick leave as service credit. Now, there's a cap on that, okay? So it's half of your sick leave up to the cap. And the cap you can find in your MOU, which is your Memorandum of Understanding. And it will tell you the maximum amount of sick leave that's convertible to service credit. So we take that amount that you have on the books up to your cap, we divide it by 2, and that tells us how much service credit to add to your amount of service credit that we're going to use in the calculation for you. A lot of the MOUs, the cap is 125 days of sick leave is the max that's convertible. So for example, just to give you an example, if you had 125 or more days of sick leave on the books, we would take that 125 days and we would divide it by 2, and that would give you 62.5 days of service credit, which is about 12 plus work weeks, which is about 3 months of additional service credit that you would get based on your sick leave. One of the MOUs does not have a cap, which is ACMEA, and then so the unrepresented people that follow ACMEA don't have a cap. But for everyone else, you need to find your MOU. If you've never seen it, I think there's a link to all of them online. And you can also ask your human resources department to provide you with your MOU. Okay, so we've talked about the age factor percentage. We've talked about the years of service credit. Let's talk about the highest average monthly salary. When you go to retire, we need to determine what your highest average monthly salary during your career was. Okay. Now we do this in a certain way. We find what we call your final compensation period. So this is your period, consecutive period of highest pay during your career. For tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on if you're paid biweekly or monthly. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially for tier 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay. And for tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And when I say highest year or highest 3 years, it's the highest year of full-time pay or the equivalent of the highest year of full-time pay, and the highest 3 years of full-time pay or the equivalent of the highest 3 years of full-time pay. So if you're getting paid your highest rate of pay, like let's say at the end of your career, but you're not working full-time, we will find other pay periods to add on, consecutive pay periods to add on to the part-time pay periods to get you up to the equivalent of these highest year or highest 3 full-time years of pay. So going down to part-time during the end of your career doesn't count against you for the salary component. Okay, so our goal with this final compensation period is to find your highest average monthly salary. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at your total pay during this final compensation period, your period of highest pay, and then we're going to divide that total pay by the number of months in that period. So for tiers 1 and 3, it's going to be 12 months. We'll divide that to get your average. For tiers 2 and 4, it's your, we'll divide by 36 months to get the average. So we just take the average of your total pay during that time, and that gives us your highest average monthly salary to use in the formula for you. So what types of pay are included in the highest average monthly salary? So if they're paid during your final compensation period, we're going to look at your base pay, of course, that's going to go in there. And then we may look at some of your other pay codes. Sometimes these are called footnotes. And these are other types of pay based on skills and education and other things. I can't tell you off the top of my head whether your pay code is going to be included in this calculation or not. But you can go to our website and search for and go to this page on our website, pay codes, started.org/pay codes, or you can just search for pay codes and bring up the list. It's a PDF for your employer, and it will tell you whether your pay code is in or out of this calculation. The one pay code that I can tell you that never counts is overtime. Okay, but you'll see on the list, it'll list all the pay codes for your employer by name and by number. There's like 1,000 different pay codes, so you can hit Control F to search if you want to, and it'll say yes or no whether it's in or out of this calculation, whether it's included or not. Okay, so I have a question. And the question is that you no longer work for Alameda County and you're currently employed with a city that uses CalPERS, which is the state's pension system, as their pension system. And I'm assuming that you have, okay, you say you have reciprocity. So the question is, will Sarah look at the pay from Alameda County or your current employer? And you're stating that your salary is much higher now. So I can tell you that we're gonna look at the salary from your current employer. So that's one of the benefits of reciprocity, is that all of the systems that are linked together will use your highest pay under any of the systems that you have linked together. So in your example, in your situation, you worked for Alameda County, you're an ASERA member, and then you went to work for a system that a city that uses CalPERS, and now you're making a higher rate of pay. So when you go to retire, you're going to retire from both systems on the same day, we are going to, when Sarah goes to calculate your retirement, we're going to contact CalPERS and find out what your salary is over there. And then we're going to compare it to your salary that we have in our payroll records for you here, and it sounds like it's going to be much higher for the CalPERS, so we're just going to use that number as your salary. Okay, I have another question. So if you retire, so the example that you're giving is you retire on January 23rd, 2021, and you're in tier 2. And the question is the year 2020 included as one of the 3 years included in the computation? And the answer is yes. So let me go back to the final compensation period slide. So because you're in tier 2, we're looking at your highest 78 biweekly pay periods, assuming that you're paid biweekly, basically your highest 3 consecutive years of pay. Now that's not based on, people ask, is it based on the calendar year, the fiscal year? It's not based on either one of those. It's based on your pay periods that you were paid the highest. So assuming that you're making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career, and it sounds like you're gonna retire in this coming January, which is, what is that, like 5 or 6 months from now? What we're gonna do is we're gonna take your retirement date, which it sounds like it's gonna be January 23rd, and we're gonna look 3 years into the past from that date, and that's gonna become what your final compensation period is. And this is, again, assuming that you're making your highest rate of pay in your career now. So your 3 years is gonna be your last 3 years of work all the way up until your retirement date. So if you just go 3 years into the past from your retirement date, in your example, that is what your final compensation period is gonna be. Okay, hope that answers your question. Okay, so we're talking about what pay is included in highest average salary. So now I'm going to get into a topic it'll take us a little bit to go through this topic. There are 2 other types of pay that can be included, that may be included in your highest average salary. And that is vacation sales. So if you sell vacation back to your employer while you're still employed, and that's during your final compensation period, that some of that could be included. Also, if you cash out vacation, also known as vacation payoff, which simply means you have vacation left over on the books when you retire, that can also be included. Now for tier 4 members, this is not included. So tier 4 members can take a snooze. We'll probably be talking about this for like 15 minutes. So sorry, the pension reform law that was passed in 2012 disallows tier 4 members from having this kind of pay included. Okay, so let me explain how this works. When we're looking at your final compensation period, we're going to see in your payroll records if you're paid for vacation that you sell while you're still an active employee. And we're going to also see if you cash out vacation in your final pay period. Assuming that you're, for the cash out, this is assuming that your final compensation period is at the end of your career, that you're making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career. So we're going to look at the total of those 2. How much you sell during the final compensation period and how much you cash out at retirement or at the termination of your job. So we're going to look at the total vacation compensation that you received for selling vacation and cashing out vacation. Okay. Now, if you have this type of pay, the law says that we have to include this type of pay up to a limit, and I'll talk about that limit in just a minute. We have to include this type of pay in your calculation. So that's what the law says. Now, if this vacation pay is included in your salary calculation, it is included in your salary, during this final compensation period, that means your total salary during the final compensation period is larger than it was had you not been paid for that vacation. Because your total salary during your final compensation period is larger, that means your average salary during that time is also larger. Because your average salary is larger and your average salary is a component in the retirement calculation, that means your retirement is larger. Okay, so the bottom line is that if you are paid for your earned vacation that you either sell or cash out, that means that your retirement allowance will be larger. How much larger? Just to give you an idea, if you, oh, actually, before I do that, let me tell you the difference. Let me go back 2 slides. The difference between vacation sales and vacation cash out is when it happens. Vacation sales happens while you're still employed. So that means you go back, you're still employed, you go back to your payroll clerk, you say, I want to sell a week of vacation. I'm not sure exactly what the process is, but they let you sell it. You get an extra week of pay in your next paycheck, and your vacation or savings have gone down by a week. So that's selling vacation. Cashing out vacation just simply means there's a bunch of vacation or some vacation that you have not used by the time you stop working. It's still on the books. At that point, your employer will cash you out for that. So they'll write you a check for that vacation that you've earned. Okay. And it's also called vacation payoff. So they'll pay you off for the vacation that you've earned. Okay, so moving forward. So what is the effect of this on your retirement allowance? And I include this slide to show you what the effect of it is because, you know, it's something that the law tells us that we have to include, and people want to know what the effect is of it, whether, you know, this is something that they want to think about or not. And so that's why I include this slide. So for example, if you're a tier 2 member and you are, and based on your situation, a Sarah can include 8 weeks of vacation pay as salary in your salary calculation. It will increase your retirement allowance by about 5%. And that's starting at retirement and for the rest of your life. And it just, you know, goes up from there. For tier 1, it's a little bit accelerated because we're just looking at a year's worth of pay. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what the increase will be. Okay. Now, I alluded to this before. The law tells us that we must cap how much vacation compensation we can include for you in the salary calculation. So you might get paid for a whole bunch of vacation, but we can only include some of it in the calculation, okay? And the law is really specific about how much we can include. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this for you on your worksheet, okay? So rather than just like try to explain it and not have a visual aid, we're going to do this on your worksheet, and so you can mark it down in your worksheet and know what your cap is going to be in case you're curious about it. I'm going to do Alameda Health System employees first, and then I'm going to do everyone else. So for Alameda Health System employees, you're going to look at this section on your worksheet. Okay, now in this field here, you're going to put in hours of PTO that you earn per pay period. So PTO is paid time off. You put in how much you earn per pay period. If you don't know, you can ask your payroll clerk. So in this example, this person earns 6.7692 hours of PTO each pay period. Okay, so then what you do is you simply, for tier 1, you multiply that number by 26 to get your tier 1 limit in hours. And for tier 2, you multiply it by 52 to get your tier 2 limit in hours. So this is for tier 2, for example, if this is your hours of PTO you earn per pay period, this is the limit of how many hours of vacation pay we're allowed to include in the salary calculation for you, 352 hours. If you have more than that, if you get paid for more than that, we can only include up to that 352 hours, okay, in this example. Okay, so for Alameda Health System employees, if you are trying to like maximize the amount of hours that you're getting paid, the only thing that you want to think about is having up to your limit on the books when you retire. You don't need to even think about selling vacation before you retire. Okay, so now we're going to do counting employees and the employees of our other participating employers. So you're going to look at this box on your worksheet. So we need to know two numbers for you. We need to know how much vacation you earn per year in weeks, and we need to know how many weeks of vacation your employer will let you sell if you wanted to sell them. Okay. So we're looking at these two boxes right here. So let's say that every year you earn 5 weeks of vacation per year. You're going to go ahead and put that 5 weeks in this box. If you earn 4 weeks of vacation per year or 3 per year, you go ahead and put that in the box. Now the payable one, that is your employer's rule for how much they'll allow you to sell per year. So they'll say, even though you earn 5 weeks per year, if you want to, you can sell 2 of those weeks back to us, and we'll pay you for those 2 weeks. So you would put that number in here, whatever the maximum amount is that they'll let you sell. For some employers, they'll even separate it out into line workers and management. Like line workers will be allowed to sell 2, management will be allowed to sell 3. So sometimes it's even based on your position. If you don't know either one of these numbers, you can ask your payroll clerk and they'll tell you what these numbers are for you. Okay. So your limit is going to be based on these two numbers, and we're going to get it from this chart on the next slide. So in this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year. They're allowed to sell 2 weeks per year. And so you come to this chart and you find how much vacation you earn per year, and you go to that row. So this person in this example earns 5. Now they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation per year. So we're going to come down into this row, and then we're going to continue over to this side. Now, if they're in tier 1, 4 weeks is going to be their limit. In tier 2, 8 weeks is going to be their limit. And when I say limit, that means the limit on the week's worth of vacation pay we can include in the salary calculation to count as salary toward retirement. So this is 8 weeks worth of vacation pay. This is 4 weeks worth of vacation pay. Okay. So you just find where you land in this chart, and then you come back to the worksheet and put it in this box. This is your limit. Okay. And everyone's limit is different based on their situation, based on these two numbers. Okay. Okay, now that we know what your limit is, now that we know what the limit is that the law tells us we cannot include more vacation pay than that limit in the salary calculation. If you want to think about whether, if you're wanting to maximize this, like if that's something that you happen to want to do, you don't have to do that. This is all, not compulsory. So this is just something that you might want to think about. And so a lot of people do want to think about it, which is why we get lots of questions about this, which is why I want to explain it. Okay. So you might want to think about whether you're selling vacation, whether you're cashing out vacation, or like what combination of vacation sales and vacation cash out you're doing to get up to your limit. Okay. So in this scenario, this person is just going to cash out 8 weeks. That means they don't have to sell any. Okay. So if you just want to cash out your limit, you can just do that. You don't even have to worry about selling any. Okay. Now let me give you a slightly different scenario. Rather than being allowed to sell 2 weeks, this person is allowed to sell 3 weeks per year. This increases their limit from the chart because the law tells us that we have to limit. The limit is based on how much you earn and what's payable to you, whichever is lesser. So if one of these numbers goes up, it will often make the limit in the chart go up. So in this scenario, excuse me, this person's limit is 12 weeks. Okay. Now, there's one more rule that I have to tell you about. Your employer has this rule that they will only cash you out for a maximum of 2 times your accrual rate. In this scenario, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year. 2 times their accrual rate of vacation per year is 10 weeks. So this is basically 2 years worth of their vacation earnings. That is the maximum that their employer will cash them out for. So if this person in this example has 11 weeks of vacation on the books when they retire, the extra week of vacation above this 2 times your accrual rate limit, it goes poof. It disappears. You don't get salary credit for it. You don't get paid for it. So you don't get the cash for it. You get nothing. Okay. So for people in this scenario where you can't get up to the limit because you're limited by this 2 times your accrual rate, then that's when you would want to think about selling vacation. So this person can only get cashed out for 10 weeks worth of vacation. They can't get up to the 12-week limit based on their situation. Then that's when they would want to sell 2 weeks worth of vacation. Otherwise, you don't need to. Going back one example, this person, 2 times their accrual rate is still 10 weeks, but their limit is less than that. It's 8 weeks worth of vacation. And so they can just get up to the 8 weeks by cashing out vacation. They don't even need to worry about selling vacation. Okay. Whereas this person cannot get up to the limit, and so then that's when they would have to sell. Okay, so then I usually get the question, well, what happens if I already sold a bunch of vacation? How does that work? If you've already sold a bunch of vacation, you and in these examples, we're assuming that you're making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career, so your final compensation period is at the end of your career. You have 2 options if you already sold a bunch of vacation. One is that you can simply cash out the difference to get up to your limit. So let's say that instead of not sold any yet or having sold 2, you've sold 6 weeks worth of vacation already. Okay. And then your limit is 12 weeks. Well, you could simply cash out the rest. So you've already sold 6, you know that you're trying to aim for 12, and so you just have 6 weeks on the books when you retire, and that gets you up to the 12 because we're adding them together. Option number 2 is that you could cash out more if you want, up to 2 times your accrual rate, and that's okay. That's fine. Nothing bad is going to happen. So what's going to happen is, let's say that you sold 6 weeks worth of vacation already, and you're getting ready to retire. So that 6 weeks comes in that final compensation period, and then you still have a whole bunch of vacation left on the books. Let's say you have 10 weeks that you're going to have on the books. Now, you're going to get all the money from this because you sold 6 weeks back to your employer. That 6 weeks worth of vacation pay, that goes into your bank account. Okay. Also, you're going to have 10 weeks worth of vacation pay, or 10 weeks worth of vacation on the books that they're going to cash you out for. All 10 weeks worth of that pay, that goes into your bank account. Okay. So you get paid for all that 16 weeks. Now, we have to limit that 16 weeks down to 12 because in this scenario, based on a person who earns 5 weeks of vacation and is allowed to sell 3. So we're going to pick 12 weeks out of the 16 that you were paid for. Which 12 are we going to pick? Well, likely, and this is usually like in tier 2 that we're looking at this. We're looking at 3 years worth of pay. Likely, you sold this 6 weeks worth of vacations at some point over that 3 years. But whenever you cashed out this 10 weeks, that came at the end of your career, and you're probably making a higher rate of pay right at the end of your career because of cost of living increases and raises. And so you actually made more money for this 10 weeks. And so we're going to take the weeks worth of vacation pay that you made the most, because our goal in calculating your highest average monthly salary is picking your absolute highest pay periods and picking your absolute highest amounts of vacation pay that we're allowed to include in the calculation. So we're going to pick this 10, and then we're going to pick the 2 highest weeks that you got paid from when you sold to get you up to the 12. So that's how that works. Okay, before we welcome back the Tier 4 members, or if you're just hanging out, are there any questions about this? Because I know it's a little bit complicated, and which is why I want to explain it to you, and not leave you hanging, not leave you in the dark, because we get questions about this anyway. So I just figure I just need to go ahead and explain how it works and how we do this calculation. Okay, so here's the question. I've been selling my vacation every year for 75 hours each year for the last 6 years. How does that work in the calculation? So I'm assuming because it's 75 hours, you are a 37.5 hour per week employee. And so 75 hours represents 2 weeks worth of vacation for you. And so that means that you've been selling 2 weeks worth of vacation in the last 6 years. How does that work in the calculation? Okay. And since you're talking about 6 years, I'm guessing that you're tier 2. So tell me if I'm wrong. And if you're tier 2, we're looking at your highest 3 years worth of pay. Another assumption that I'll make, and tell me if I'm wrong, you can go ahead and type that in, is that you're making your highest rate of pay at the end of your career. Okay, let me know if you're not. Okay, so yes, you are tier 2, and you're making your, and so are you making your highest? I'm going to assume that you're making your highest pay at the end of your career. Okay, now, since we're looking at your last 3 years of pay, okay, great. Since we're looking at your last 3 years of pay, we're not looking at the 3 years before that you're telling me that you've been selling vacation for 6 years, 2 weeks worth of vacation for 6 years. So we're going to forget about that first 3 years where you sold vacation. Okay, so then we're going to just look at your last 3 years. Okay, so then my question for you would be, within this last 3 years of pay, if you happen to know what your retirement date is, going back 3 years in the past from that, did you sell that 3 years worth? So the last 3 years, did you sell 2 weeks worth of vacation within those time frames? Now, for the last 2 years, you probably did. Well, my question for you would be that third year into the past, not your last year, not your second to last year, but your third to last year of pay, when you sold those 2 weeks, was it within that period or was it before that period? Because you may have sold it. It may not actually be included in that 3 years. Okay. And then, but let's assume that you did sell it within the 3 years. Okay, so then you're actually in this scenario where you have sold 6 weeks worth of vacation during your final compensation period already. So then you would actually be in this exact scenario, which is, depending on your limit, you would have these two options. You would have option number 1, cash out the difference. Option number 2, just cash out whatever you have on the books, even if it's more than your limit, because we're going to limit you. If you want to go ahead and type in how many weeks of vacation you earn per year and how many you're allowed to sell per year, I can get more specific. Okay, so you earn 5 weeks per year. How many are you allowed to sell per year? Because we need to know that number as well. Okay, you're allowed to sell 2 weeks. So you're in this scenario where your limit is 8, but you've already sold 6 weeks worth of vacation. So regarding your two options, you could either simply have 2 weeks worth of vacation on the books when you retire, and that would get you up to the 8, or you could just have more, and we'll just limit it down to 8. And excuse me, if you have more and we're trying to, and you're cashing out let's say that you cash out 8 and you've sold 6. This will make your retirement allowance a little bit more, because you would get paid a little bit more for what you cash out than what you would have sold, based on cost, if you've gotten cost of living adjustments and raises. So those are your two options. Any further questions on this vacation topic before I move on? And let me know if I didn't answer your question completely. So your follow-up question is, if 2020 counted, should you sell 2 weeks or leave it for the final on January 2021? So you don't, like, there's nothing magic about selling versus cashing out. So if you have, you're not going to want to have, since you earn 5 weeks per year, you're not going to want to have more than 2 times your accrual rate of vacation on the books before you retire. So if you're going to have more than 10, you're going to either want to take vacation so that you can take a vacation, or you're going to want to sell vacation before you leave, because you don't want to have more than 10 on the books, because you'll just lose it. Or you can tack, if you have more than 10, you can take a vacation. If they'll let you do it, you could just tack it on to the end of your career and push out your retirement another week or however many weeks, and just be on vacation leave at the end of your career. So yeah, but assuming that you're not going to have more than 10 on the books when you retire, you could just simply leave it, and then we'll cash you out for, whatever you have on the books, or your employer will. And then because you get cashed out for that, that number will go in here, and we'll just add together whatever you sold in that 3 years, plus whatever you cashed out, and then we'll limit it to 8. So if you've already sold 6, I mean, you're in a good situation in that you really only need to cash out 2, but you could cash out more than that. One thing that I would do, though, is, like, if you can go back through your payroll records back to let's see, 2020, 2019, 2018, you're going to want to see whether, just to make sure that when you sold in 2018, it was after basically January of 2018. So if you sold after January of 2018, and then you sold during 2019, and you sold during 2020, that means that you actually have 6 right here. And then you would just need, and so you know how much you've sold, and so that can help you figure out how much to cash out here. Okay. So Tier 4 members, welcome back. Sorry that took so long. Okay, so you usually sold in December. So if you sold in December 2018, you sold in December 2019, that means that you have 4 weeks so far in that 3-year period. Now, if you sell in December of 2020, you would have 6 weeks, but you don't really have to do that. You would just want to have 4 weeks on the books, and that would get you up to the 8. So between the 4 that you already sold and the 4 that you have on the books, that would get you up to the 8. Sure. Okay, so let me touch on this topic very briefly. There are some benefit limits on your retirement allowance. Most people do not hit these limits, but in case you do, I'll just go through them quickly. The first limit is that your retirement allowance is capped at 100% of your highest average monthly salary. The idea behind this is to make it so that you basically can't make more in retirement than you were making as a working employee. But that's sort of the case because your highest average monthly salary can actually be a tiny bit higher because of that vacation sales thing, which we just talked about. but most people do not hit this cap. The vast majority of people retire with, the average that people retire with is 20 years of service credit. For tier 1, you have to have over like 35 years of service credit. For tier 2, you have to have like over 40 or 45 years of service credit to be within striking distance of making 100% of what you were making before retirement in retirement. So most people do not hit this cap. But if you are able to make it like get 100% in as your retirement allowance of what you're making before retirement, that's amazing. You earned it. Okay, the next two are limits for people with high salaries. This does not apply to almost anyone, but if you are somebody who has a high salary, you're going to want to go ahead and read these two and see what the limits are for you if you entered a SARA between this date and this date. Okay, for tier 4, there is a cap on your annual salary that we can use to determine your highest average monthly salary. For general members, it's this number, 126,291. For safety members, it's 151,549. And we can't include more salary than that for the purposes of calculating your highest average monthly salary on an annual basis. But the good news is, that's the bad news. The good news is that any salary that you earn over that, we're not going to take retirement contributions out of any salary over that. And so you have more money to save in like your 457B account or in any investments to save additional toward retirement. And those numbers go up every year. So if you're not retiring this year, you're going to want to see whatever those numbers are in future years. Okay. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to get an estimate of your retirement allowance. I'm going to show you two ways. There's two spots on this on your worksheet. The first way is to get a ballpark estimate. And this will actually help that first question get answered. The question that I have is, you're thinking based on your situation, you're only going to achieve 80% income replacement. So that means that whatever you're making now as an employee, you're only going to get 80% of that in your retirement. How do you get up to 100, or how long will that take? Well, this ballpark estimate is a good way of understanding how long that will take. So what you do for this part of the worksheet is you think about your retirement scenario, and you're going to want to put in your retirement age based on this basic scenario that you're thinking about. If you know exactly what your future retirement date is, you know what age you're going to be on that date. But if you just kind of have a rough idea, you can just kind of roughly put in what your retirement age is going to be in this blank. Okay. Also in this scenario, you think into the future, and you think how many years of service credit will you have in this scenario. So if I'm going to retire 3 years from now, and I'm going to be age 58 3 years from now because I'm 55 right now, and currently I've worked for 26 years, so 3 years from now I'll have 29 years of service credit. I'll go ahead and put those two in here, just to give you an example. Then what you're going to do is you're going to need to get this percentage from one of our ballpark salary charts at our website. So let me switch the screen share over to our website, and I'll show you where to find that. Okay, here's our new website. And what you're going to do is you can go right there on that slide, and you can go get a retirement estimate. Another way to get there is to click on the Get Started. And if you scroll down here, we have these buttons for each one of the tiers. And this just gives you a ballpark idea of what percentage of your salary that you're going to get in retirement. Okay, so let's see. Let's do Well, let me stick with the example that I'm already doing from the presentation, which is a Tier 2 general example. Okay, so this is the income replacement chart. You see your different ages at retirement across the top and the different years of service credit down the side, and you just find where they intersect. So in this example, we were saying age 58 with 29 years of service. So I'll come over here to 29 years of service. I'll go over to age 58, and that is 50.03 percent of your salary that you're going to get as your retirement allowance in this example. Okay. Now to your question, there was the question that I had of currently you're only going to receive 80%. How long will it take before you get to 100%? Maybe you can tell me if you happen to want to, like what age you are right now and how much service credit you have right now, and then we can see like how that would progress. So you can go ahead and type that in. Otherwise, I'll go back to the screen share and show you where to put this 50% in. Oh, I see. Okay, well, I'll address that question a little bit later on in the presentation when we talk about the application for service retirement. Okay. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. So we have determined that if you're tier 2 in this example and you retire at age 58 with 29 years of service credit, you would get 50.03% of your salary in retirement. So then the next thing that you do is you put in what you think your highest average monthly salary is. You can kind of estimate, or you could base it on how much you make per month currently, or you could log into your account on our website and use the benefit estimator, and it will give you an estimate of this. And then you simply multiply 50% in this example by 6,000. That gives you $3,001. That just kind of gives you a rough idea of what percent of your salary you're going to get in retirement. Okay. And then if you look at the chart, you can just kind of see if you wait another year, you'll be another year older and you'll earn another year of service credit. So you just go out down diagonally, down one box. Actually, I can go back to the chart and show you that. So if you waited another year, you were another year older, another year of service credit, you get 54% of your salary, and 59%, and 63%, and so on and so forth. So that's how that works. Okay, so that is the first way to get an estimate of your retirement allowance. The question is, do you use net or gross? Use gross. So it's gross pay that goes into the retirement calculation. Now, the second way to get a retirement calculation is to use the benefit estimator. This gives you more of a precise estimate. Okay. Let me read this question real fast. Okay, so the question was, you're going to retire in September of 2021, basically a year from now. You already have 13 years, you're in tier 2, you're age 67. Well, if I go back to this chart, we can go to age, let me move some stuff out of the way here so I can see it. Okay, so you're already 65 plus, and you've worked for 13 years, but when you retire, you're gonna have 14 years of service credit. So you're gonna get 34% of your salary in retirement. That's your ballpark amount. Now, if to get a precision estimate, let me go back to the presentation and I'll show you how that all works. So to get a precision estimate, you're going to use the online benefit estimator, which means that you, first of all, we're going to put in, we're going to want to know these two dates right here, your separation date and your projected retirement date. Your separation date is your last day of work or last day in active pay status. Your projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. If you're going straight into retirement, the separation date will be the day before your projected retirement date. If you're gonna quit working and retire later, there will be some separation between those dates. Okay, so you can go ahead and put those dates into the worksheet. And what we're gonna do is we go out sorry, this is actually our old website. I haven't changed the screenshot yet, but this concept is the same. You press the login button, and once you log into our member portal, which is called Web Member Services, and you'll see, first of all, this summary screen, and then you're going to want to click on Estimate a Benefit, and that takes you to the benefit estimator. And then you take those two dates and you put them in right here, separation date and projected retirement date. The projected retirement date has to be at least the next day after the separation date. And then you're going to hit Calculate. So I'm going to zoom in here real fast so you can see it better. So you see I have two dates in here. And then you hit, for this retirement scenario that I'm doing, and then you hit Calculate. So in this scenario, I will have earned, for this fictional person, 21.2 years of service credit in this scenario, where I'm stopping work on this date and retiring on this date. Also, my average salary is projected to be this amount. Okay, so it gives you it projects your service credit and projects your salary. It doesn't really project your salary that far into the future, though. It kind of uses your current salary that it has on the books for you in the database. And so if you're going to retire many years from now, you have the opportunity to override that salary amount. Or if you are going to like make a service credit purchase in the future, you can override your service credit amount. Or if you want to see the effect of that sick leave conversion on your retirement estimate, you could add that sick leave conversion to this number and put the new total in this override. And then once you click on Get Estimate, you're going to get a retirement estimate. Now there's this box right here, hours of cash vacation compensation. So if you want to get an estimate, this is totally optional. If you want to get an estimate and see what the effect of selling and or cashing out vacation will have on your retirement allowance, you can use this box. And I can show you how to do that right now. If you don't want to do that, if you want to get a nice conservative estimate, you just click Get Estimate and you'll get your retirement estimate. But if you do want to put it in here, I'll show you how to put in hours of cash vacation compensation without overestimating, which will give you an overestimate of your retirement allowance, which is not good. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so I have some questions up here. Let me just check on this real fast. Okay, that is a good question for me to answer real fast. How do you determine service credit when you have reciprocity? None of your reciprocal service credit is going to be in here. This is only a ACERA service credit. So what you're doing here is a calculation just for your ACERA time. If you have reciprocity with a different retirement system, you need to go out to their website and do their calculator for the amount that they're going to pay you out of their retirement system, because we're each going to send you a retirement check based on the retirement that you earned under each system. Now, if you are somebody who is not a current active member of ACERA, you're currently working for a different system where you're making more money, so ACERA is going to use your salary from that system. What you can do for your retirement estimate here is use your reciprocal salary in this salary blank. So in that, there was an example earlier from somebody who's working for a city that uses CalPERS and they're making more money now. Well, ACERA is going to use the higher salary. So you can take your current salary and put in like kind of an average monthly salary in this field right here and use that for your estimate. But again, we're not gonna use service credit from other systems in your calculation. Okay, so let me show you how to include hours of cash vacation compensation in your estimate if you should want to get an estimate with that included. Okay, so AHS people, you're going to skip these two blanks. You're going to just fill in your limit in hours here. Now for everyone else, what we need to do is convert your limit from weeks to hours. Okay, so we've already established the maximum amount of vacation pay that we can include in your salary calculation in weeks. So you just take that limit from the other part of the worksheet and you put your limit in here. Remember, that was based on that chart. Then you put in how many hours you work per week, whether it's 40 or 37.5 or some other amount. And you multiply those together, and that is your limit. Okay. Now for AHS members, you just take that number from your part of the chart in hours and you put it in this field because we already know what your limit is in hours. Okay, now we know what your limit is in hours. Well, the goal of this is to make sure you don't overestimate, because you may have, if you've already sold vacation during your final compensation period. So here is a PDF of your retirement benefit estimate that is going to be generated from this benefit estimator. So your step one, if you go back here, step one is to run the estimate, and you leave that field blank. You don't put in any hours of cash vacation compensation. And then you're going to look at this date range right here. This is the date range that this estimator is using as your final compensation period. And then you're going to want to think back. Did I sell a vacation during this date range? If so, how much vacation did I sell during this date range? And then you put in how much vacation you sold during that date range here. So in this example, I'm thinking back and I'm remembering, oh yeah, I sold 1 week of vacation during that date range. Then you're simply doing a subtraction. So you're subtracting this amount from this amount. And this is how much you would put into this field here. Now, if you've never sold vacation, or you know for a fact you didn't sell vacation during that date range, then you don't need to do the subtraction here. You just put in your limit in hours. You can, if you want to see what the maximum will get you in terms of your retirement allowance. If you're not trying to maximize it, if you just know that you're gonna like include a week's worth of vacation, you just put in 40 hours here. Okay, so it's gonna be, you're gonna have to think based on your particular scenario. Okay, then you click Get Estimate. This is your retirement benefit estimate. And just to zoom in here, it gives you a number for each of the different retirement allowance options. I'll talk about those options later on in the presentation. For right now, you can just look at this number right here. This is your unmodified option allowance, and this pays the most of any of the other retirement allowance options. And so if you just kind of want a basic allowance option, this is the number that you're looking at, this box right here. But don't get confused. Some people get confused. They think this number is their retirement allowance. That is not their retirement allowance estimate. That is an estimate of their average monthly salary. This is your retirement allowance estimate here. Okay, I have a question. The question is, do you work the entire year for the service credit percentage, or is it by age? So for example, on 12/1, you'll have 31 years and be 58 years old. You still get 53.8%. So those ballpark charts that I showed you, those kind of give you the round numbers based on round ages, whole ages, and round numbers of service credits. Really what's going to happen when we do this calculation is we're going to use an age factor percentage based on your quarter year age. And we're also going to use a service credit number based on all of the amounts of service credit you have down to the minute that you stop working. So you start earning service credit at your date of entry, you earn it all the way down to the minute that you stop working, which is why when you look at your service credit number, like in this example, it's 21.27634. Those decimal places are as calculating your service credit number down to the fraction of a day, down to 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes you work, you earn 15 more minutes of service credit, and you get all of those decimal places in the calculation for you. So you don't have to get over, like, this person wouldn't have to get over like 22 years to get 22 years worth of service credit. They're going to get 21.27634 years of service credit in the calculation for them. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so back to the worksheet. Based on separation date and projected retirement date, and you can put in the hours of cash vacation compensation you put into the worksheet here, you can go ahead and put in like whatever the precision estimate number is that you got from here, if you want to do that. And so that is your precision retirement estimate. So I hope that answers your question, the question from earlier regarding your age at there was the question, you're going to retire in September of 2021 with 13 years with Alameda County. What you would want to do for the precision estimate is just go back here. If you're going to work right up till retirement, you put in 9/15/2021 here. You put in 9/14/2021 here. You hit calculate, and then if you want to put in hours of cash vacation compensation here, you can. If not, you just hit get estimate, and this is how you get your retirement estimate. This is how you figure out what your retirement allowance is going to be. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so that's two ways to get a retirement estimate: the ballpark estimate sheets, and then the precision estimate using the online estimator. There's a third way. Sure. You're welcome. You're welcome. There's a third way, which is that you can have us do it for you. You submit a retirement estimate request form to us. You can find that on our forms page. You can also actually log into the member portal, and you can fill out an online form there. So the thing with these is that you're sending us a request, and one of our retirement specialists is going to have to fulfill that request. There's also a lot of other people waiting in line to get these requests filled. And so this could take some time for you to get back. This could take a few weeks to get the estimate back. Versus using the benefit estimator that I just showed you, that is using the same software, the same math, and you're going to get the same result. It's just you can do that within like 10 or 15 minutes yourself versus waiting for us to do it for you. But if you do want to have us do it for you, you have that option. Okay. So moving on to the next item in the checklist, verifying your retirement eligibility. So we're talking about this pension milestone here. You become eligible to retire once you meet one of these eligibility scenarios. So these first three are for tiers 1, 2, and 3, and I'll do tier 4 in just a minute. Option number 1 is that you're age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership in ACERA, and that makes you eligible to retire. Now, if you are going straight into retirement from active work, you don't even have to think about really the 5 years. You just work for 10 years, you earn 10 years of service credit, you're over age 50, and then you can retire. Now, for some people who are going to leave work after earning 5 years of service credit, but before they reach the 10-year mark, what you would do is you would stop working. You would become what we call a deferred member. So you're done working, but you're not ready to retire yet. You're not actually eligible yet. So you're deferring your retirement to a later date. And then once 10 years passes from your date of entry, then you become eligible to retire as long as you're over age 50. And so that's option number 1. Option number 2 is if you're a general member and you have 30 years of service credit, or a safety member with 20 years of service credit, you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3 is that you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years of service credit you would need for option number 1. So once you fulfill one of those 3 scenarios, sets of criteria, then you're eligible to retire, and you can go ahead and choose your retirement date and retire. Okay, so for tier 4, you have these 2 options. For general members, you're age 52. For safety members, you're age 50. So those ages are older, and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and then you can retire. You're eligible to retire. Or you can be age 70 and have any amount of service credit, and then you can retire. So that is how you achieve eligibility to retire. So now that you know your retirement eligibility date, you can go ahead and put it in the worksheet if you like. And so like if it's the 5-year mark or the 10-year mark, or if it's when you achieve the right age. So just based on your scenario, you can put it in here. If you happen to already know that you're eligible to retire, you don't have to worry about putting it in if you don't want to. Okay. Now I will help you choose your retirement date. There are some things that you want to think about in choosing your retirement date. This is a date that you're going to choose. We don't choose it for you. So once you're eligible to retire, you can choose any date after that to retire. Here are the things that you're going to want to consider. There's 7 different things. So let me talk about each one of these. First one is, will you have enough income to retire? So this is a good idea to do, to just kind of like take a little peek into the future. See what your income is going to look like in retirement. Kind of think about what your life is going to cost in retirement, and just kind of see if you're going to be able to pay for your life in retirement now while you're still working and earning more retirement. And so a good way to do that is to get a retirement estimate, like we just talked about. If you have a deferred compensation account, like a 457B account, or if you have like 401ks or other types of accounts from previous jobs, it's good to go ahead and check the balances of those. It's good to go ahead and get an estimate from Social Security to see how much they're going to pay you once you become eligible. And then it's also good to think about your post-retirement expenses. Financial planners will say that you are going to need 70 to 80% of whatever you were making before retirement. You're going to need that in retirement to maintain your standard of living. So if you kind of like take this peek into the future and you're not quite at 70 to 80%, maybe you're going to want to make some different plans. Work a little bit longer, or maybe like retire somewhere else that's cheaper. So it's just a good idea to go ahead and just take that little peek into the future. Now this is kind of a simplistic slide. We actually do have out on our website a new page that goes into more detail about this. So I'm going to go back to our home page, and if you scroll down, there's this section that has shortcuts about being ready to retire, whether you're ready to retire. And so let me see if this is it. Estimate your retirement income. So yeah, you click on that link, and this is all about understanding your retirement income before you retire. And so this kind of takes you through more detail about like how to take that peek into the future. Okay, so that's just a tool out there for you, that web page. Okay, so we've talked about that. The second thing you're going to want to think about in choosing your retirement date are these age factor percentage dates. And so this is when you're going to want to think about this is if you have not yet reached the maximum age factor for your tier. So remember when I showed you the tier chart, for tier 1 general members, the maximum age factor percentage was reached at age 62. For tier 2 general, it was 65. For tier 4 general, it was 67. I think tier 3 general is 55 maybe. Tier 1 and Tier 2B safety is age 50. So if you have not yet achieved those ages for your tier, then that means every 3 months that passes, you're going up one notch in the age factor chart. You're achieving a slightly higher age factor percentage. So just to give you an example, if that's the case for you and your birthday is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th, 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th, 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th. So every time you pass one of these days and don't retire, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage, okay? So let's say that you're thinking about retiring. You've not yet achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, and you're thinking about retiring on, let's say you're gonna retire on July 14th. Don't do that, because if you just wait 2 days, if you work on July 15th, you retire on July 16th, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. And it increases your retirement allowance by a little over 1%. So it's like 1% and change. So just by being cognizant of those days and not retiring right before that date, what I'm trying to help you do is not miss that age factor percentage date. So you would want to retire maybe right after one of those dates. Or if you're going to retire like halfway between the dates, like halfway between July 15th and October 15th, for example, yeah, maybe not. Maybe you don't want to work that extra 6 weeks to get over this next date. So just what I'm trying to help you do is, like, if you're going to retire right around October 15th, maybe go ahead and work October 15th, retire October 16th, so you get over that next age factor percentage date. Okay, that's all I'm trying to help you do with this. Okay, let me take that question in just a minute. Okay, the third thing that you're going to want to think about. Cost of living, the cost of living adjustment. So the cost of living adjustment, if you recall, is a vested benefit. Every year you get an increase to your retirement allowance, and that is a guaranteed increase. It's based on inflation in the Bay Area. So whatever the consumer price index increases percentage-wise from December to December in the Bay Area, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. So if Bay Area prices go up 5%, for example, that becomes the cost of living adjustment. Except there's a limit on the cost of living adjustment. For Tier 1 and Tier 3 members, you can't get more than a 3% increase annually. For Tier 2 and 4 members, you can't get more than a 2% increase annually. So if in the example that I'm giving you, inflation is 5%, what happens to the extra percentage points is they go into your COLA bank, and we'll use those percentage points in future years whenever inflation is less than the maximum 2 or 3%. So let's say the next year comes around and inflation is only 1%. Well, if you have percentage points in your COLA bank, we'll take those out of your COLA bank, we'll add them to the 1% to try to get you up to the 2 or 3%. Retirees who have been retired at least a few years tend to have percentage points in their COLA bank. And so if you've been retired a few years to quite a few years, you tend to get the maximum no matter what, 2 or 3% every year, because you have stored percentages in your COLA bank, even if inflation is only like 1% or 1.5%. Okay. If you are a new retiree and that year inflation happens to be 0%, that happened one time in the past 11 years, you wouldn't really get an increase for that year. Even though it's a vested benefit, your increase would be 0% based on the inflation that year. But when that happened a few years ago, it was like maybe 8 or 9 years ago, everyone else who had already been retired at least a year had percentage points in their COLA bank, and so they were able to get a cost of living adjustment. Okay. The next thing that you may want to consider when you're choosing your retirement date. This doesn't apply to everyone, but this applies to people who have not yet reached their maximum age factor percentage and they're thinking about retiring in the spring. Okay. Oh, and let me go back I forgot to mention something about cost of living adjustment. It's paid on April 1st every year. Everyone in a retired status on April 1st gets the cost of living adjustment on April 1st every year. So that's how that works. If you're a new retiree and you're retiring on April 1st, you will get the cost of living adjustment for that year. If you retire on April 2nd, you're going to miss that year's cost of living adjustment, but you will get the cost of living adjustment next April 1st and every April 1st after that. Okay, so back to the next slide. What if there's a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment? So in this scenario, again, let's say that your birthday is January 15th. You're a general member. You're age 60. The reason I'm doing this is because you haven't yet achieved the maximum age factor for your tier. And you're retiring in the spring. And actually, this isn't true for tier 3 now that I'm thinking about it, so I need to change that. But for tiers 1, 2, and 4, this is true. Okay, so you're retiring in the spring and you're thinking, because your birthday is January 15th, should I retire on April 16th? So I'll work on April 15th, retire on April 16th, and I'll get the age factor increase by passing 1 quarter after my birthday, April 15th. But I'm going to miss the cost of living adjustment, which I would have gotten had I retired on April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st? I'll miss the age factor increase that I would get if I retired in 2 weeks on April 16th, but I'll get the cost of living increase. Which one should I do? Well, you probably already know the answer because I already gave you the percentages. But if the cost of living adjustment is the maximum that year, because inflation is at least 2% or 3%, you go with the cost of living adjustment, because that'll give you a 2 or 3% increase based on your tier versus the 1% increase you would get based on just the age factor percentage. Okay. So what this whole discussion of these dates mean is that you want to just kind of be cognizant of these dates. If you are retiring in the spring and you want to get that cost of living adjustment immediately, you're going to want to retire on April 1st or maybe a little bit before April 1st. And yes, if you retire a little bit after April 1st, you would have gotten more money had you retired on or before April 1st. So that's why so many people retire in March and retire on April 1st, is because they're already going to retire in the spring and they're thinking, okay, well, I can retire now and I'll get the cost of living adjustment. Why would I retire in April after, like April 2nd and after, and I'll miss the cost of living adjustment and make less money? But that situation quickly resolves itself within maybe 2 months. So maybe if you retire in April and May, it would have been more, you would have gotten more money had you retired on April 1st, if the cost of living adjustment is the max that year. And we always know what the cost of living adjustment is going to be in early February, and we post that out on our website. But then after that, you're going to have made more money through earning more service credit, and maybe you're going to pass more of these age factor percentage increase days. Like, let's take the same scenario and say you looked at this versus this, and then you thought, well, I really want to retire in the summer. I'm going to retire in late July. So that would actually beat the cost of living adjustment, because you would get an age factor increase for April 16th, you would get an age factor increase for July 16th, and then you would have made 3 more months worth of service credit, and that would beat whatever the percentage increase you would have gotten for getting the cost of living adjustment on April 1st. So if you're going to retire in the rest of the year, like basically June through back again then into March, you don't really need to think about this cost of living increase. It's just that I'm thinking that you probably don't want to retire like maybe April 2nd through maybe like the end of May. But you can actually do the multiplication yourself and figure out whether that's advantageous for you or not. Now, for the rest of the year, you just want to be cognizant of these age factor days. Don't retire right before one. So that's just something to think about. But otherwise, like, don't stress out about this stuff too much, because mostly your retirement allowance is going to come through you having worked so many years and earning so much service credit, and just like your age factor percentage getting older and older. So what we're talking about is little differences here. Okay. So before I do these next two, let me take these couple of questions. Okay, because we're on this topic, let me do this one first. Okay, so the question is that your date of birth is in early October and you're going to retire in late January. So let me see, we got October, November, December, January. So your next age factor percentage date would be that same day in early January. So if you retire in late January, yes, you will pass that age factor percentage date and you will get that little 1% increase. So yes. And then you would get, on April 1st, you would get a cost of living increase as well. So yes. In this, like, so there's only a dilemma between these two. It also depends on your birth date. So let's take somebody with a December 15th birth date. Now, their 1 quarter after their birthday would be March 15th. So if they retired on March 16th, they would get the age factor percentage increase for March 15th, and they would get the cost of living adjustment on April 1st. Okay. So you can see that it all depends on your own specific situation. You're welcome. Okay, let me take this next question. The question is that you have 4.6, you have not quite 5 years of service credit, you have 4.6 years of service credit, and you'll have 10 years of membership in June of 2021. Okay. And you no longer work for Alameda County, but you have reciprocity. Do you have to wait until age 70? And the answer is unlikely. Let me show you the scenarios again. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're already age 50 because you're asking about this retirement eligibility. And you have 4.6 years of service credit with the SARA, but you've already gone to work somewhere else where you have reciprocity. So I'm assuming that you have already worked. Okay, so yeah, you're already over age 50, and you've already worked that extra 0.4 years in the other organization. So maybe you could say how much service credit you've earned in the other organization that you have reciprocity with. Okay, so you have 16 years. So you do not have to wait till age 70. So you have not quite 5 years of service credit with Acera, but you have 16 years with the next employer, and you've linked the retirement systems together by establishing reciprocity. That gives you a total, when we're thinking about vesting and retirement eligibility, we're looking at the total among all of the retirement systems. So you have 20.6 years of service credit. So you are way over, with that combination, you're way over that 5 years that you need. Okay. And then also, I'm so you say that you're not going to have 10 years of membership until June of 2021, but you have worked a combined 20.6 years. And so really, when you have reciprocity for the purposes of this membership number also, that includes the reciprocal time. So it goes back to the entry date of your first reciprocal agency that you have linked together. So my suspicion is that you probably do have way more than 10 years of membership in both systems combined. So you are already eligible to retire. Okay, you worked for the state and then Alameda County, which is reciprocity, and now you're working for another agency that that we don't have reciprocity with. So you are. It sounds like you're a deferred member currently. You've deferred your retirement. You haven't retired yet. Is that right? Okay. And my question is, you're already eligible to retire. So, are you? Is there something that you're waiting on to actually retire? Things that you might be waiting on. Things that people are waiting on usually when they're a deferred member is becoming eligible to retire. Um, you're already eligible. Also, if you're considering coming back to work for one of Sarah's participating employers, um, that is a reason that people are waiting. Uh, Another reason is that they have reciprocity that they're currently working in, but none of those scenarios, you don't fall into any of those scenarios. I see. So, so you're still working for a city that we don't have reciprocity with. Okay. Now, you're already eligible to retire from Acera and from CalPERS. Um, so, and it sounds like you're waiting for your next birthday. So uh, I would kind of put the idea in your head that maybe you should go ahead and retire from the state and from Alameda County because you're missing out on retirement payments that you could be getting right now. Because we don't care where else you work as an Acera retiree. So you're working for another city government that we don't have reciprocity with. So we don't care about that. You can keep working and you can keep having your medical benefits through that city. Um, Oakland does have CalPERS. Okay, so that's why you're waiting. Okay, so you work for this. It's like you have reciprocity with CalPERS, then Alameda County, then CalPERS again, and so yeah, you have to retire from all those on the same day in order to not break reciprocity. So that's correct. Yes, that's a good reason to wait. Yeah, no worries. Okay, back to the presentation. The number five thing you want to think about when um, choosing your retirement date is once you've kind of narrowed in on the kind of like time period, the month, maybe down to the week where you want to retire, you want to choose the day. You want to choose the day carefully. You want to retire on, if you're going to go straight into retirement. So if you're actively working and you're wanting to go straight into retirement, you're going to want to choose, have your first day of retirement be on the next day after your last day in active pay status. And the reason for that is because that allows us to do the sick leave conversion for you, where we convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. Now, if you spend any time as a deferred member, like let's say that this is your last day of work on the 20th and on the 25th is your first day of retirement, that means you were a deferred member these days and you lost all your sick leave. Okay. So your first day of retirement should be the next day after your last day of work. This applies to people who are currently actively working for SARA participating employers. For those of you who have already left SARA covered employment, like the person I was just answering the question for is currently working under CalPERS, all your sick leave for your SARA employer already vanished, so you don't even have to worry about that. But if you're an active SARA member and you're wanting to go straight into retirement so that we can do that sick leave conversion for you, you just want to pick your first retirement date to be the next day after your last day of employment or active pay status. And it's okay if you're on leave that day. So you could take a vacation your last week of work, or you could be on sick leave this day. Okay, that's okay. It's just the last day of your active pay status should be the day before your retirement date. The next thing that you're going to want to think about is related. You're going to want that first day of retirement to be not a holiday day, and you're going to want it to be a day where you were actually scheduled to work the day before or be on leave the day before. Okay, so for people who work Monday through Friday, this is easy. You have a fixed schedule. It's Monday through Friday. You just pick any day except for Sunday or Monday, because you worked. If you pick Saturday, you were scheduled to work on Friday the day before. That's great. So you can pick your first day of retirement as any day where you're scheduled to work the day before. Now, for those of you like sheriff's deputies and healthcare professionals who work for Alameda Health System, maybe you don't have such a fixed schedule. So you're going to want to pick your retirement date closer to the time when you're going to retire, and you just look at your schedule for that time period, and you pick a day after you're scheduled to work. And again, it's okay if you're on leave that day. Okay. Last thing, don't retire on July 1st. Pick any other day, because the vacation compensation limits that I showed you earlier are all lower if you retire on July 1st for us being able to include vacation compensation in the salary calculation. And it's a slightly convoluted reason. It has to do with straddling fiscal years. You don't really need to understand it. Just don't retire on July 1st. Retire any other day. June 30th is a beautiful day to retire. July 2nd, wonderful day to retire. Okay. So now back to your worksheet and your career timeline. So if you have a better idea of what your projected retirement date might be, you can fill that in here. And also, if you happen to be an active member who wants to go directly into retirement, now you know that the separation date should be the day before this projected retirement date. And so you can fill those in here. Okay, applying to retire, retirement application process. What does that look like? Here is the retirement application process. The first step is we want you to go through our preparing to retire section out on our website. And so there's various things that you're going to want to go through there, such as providing certain documents, changing your web member services username to your personal email account, notifying your department, etc. So there's a whole bunch of steps. I'll go back out to our website and show you that section and how to get there. If you go to our website, there's a couple of ways you can get to it. You can go under members, preparing to retire right here, and scroll down, prepare to retire right here. They both go to the same place. And this is the preparing to retire section. So we're going to want you to just go through these things. Some of the stuff you will have heard in the presentation. Some of the stuff is a little more detailed than we can do in this presentation. But yeah, go ahead and go through the section. And step 2 is you set up your Ready to Retire counseling session. So previously we wanted you to call in to set it up, and I haven't changed the slide yet. What we want you to do now, 3 to 6 months ahead of time, is actually go out to our website and fill out our form to schedule your Ready to Retirement counseling session. And it's in that section I just showed you. It's down here, schedule a Ready to Retire counseling session. And you do this in a 3 to 6 month period before your retirement date. And then you just fill out this form and submit it, and we will contact you to get that date scheduled. What this form does is it sets off a series of events that help us prepare your file for you to retire. Okay. The counseling session is going to be scheduled for you when we call you. It's going to be scheduled for the 60-day period prior to your retirement date. In that counseling session, you can submit your retirement application. Currently, we're doing video and phone retirement counseling sessions only because of the pandemic. But that could change at some point in the future when the situation changes. There's also a online retirement packet and further steps about submitting your retirement application in that preparing to retire section. And so you're going to submit your retirement application within that 60 days prior to your retirement date. And there's instructions in the submitting your retirement application section that our staff will work with you during that process, even outside of the counseling session. So that's here. That's the last step, applying to retire. So you would go to this step, and here's the retirement packet. So the retirement application is the most important part of the packet, and by submitting that and writing in your retirement date on that application, we scan that into our system, and then once that date passes, you're retired. And so that's how that works. Also during that period, you're going to select one of 5 retirement options. Currently, it's on this option election agreement. In the future, we're probably going to combine the application and this option election agreement. So it might be all in the same form in the future. But you can also submit that in conjunction with your retirement counseling session. And then once your retirement date passes, you're retired. Woohoo! Amazing. You get to bring home the benefits that you've been earning throughout your career. Okay. Now that you know when to call in for your ready to retire counseling session, you can go ahead and put that date in here. And basically, you're just going to take your retirement date and subtract basically 6 months, or we said 3 to 6 months. So you just kind of put in a date here, and that's when you will fill out our form for your ready to retire counseling session. Okay. Now that you are retired, you can expect your first retirement check within 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. If there are any major issues with your file, like missing documentation or divorce orders pending, you will get 80% payments until that is resolved. And there's actually a question from earlier in the presentation about this. We need to spend some time resolving the situation, and then once it's resolved, we'll get you up to your 100% payments, and you'll get retro payments for any payments that we made to you that were less than the 80%. They're 100% payments. So the question that you had earlier is, how long does it take for them to get these things sorted out? It all depends on the situation. If it's missing documentation, it's just however soon we can get the documentation. If it's a divorce order is pending, that could take even more time because those things take some time to work their way through the court system. It just all depends on the situation. So if you want to hang around after the presentation and give me some more details about that, maybe I can help you narrow in on that. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to come back in 1 minute. I'll be right back, and then we'll talk about your retirement allowance options and the other medical, dental, vision benefits. Okay, here are your retirement allowance options. I'm going to tell you about all 5 of these. They are the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. We'll talk about each one. And for each one, I'm going to show you a slide, and this top part will talk about what you get paid in your retirement allowance while you're a retiree, and this bottom part will talk about what your beneficiaries will receive once you pass away. Now, your beneficiary, that is the person who you designate to get your death benefits when you retire. A beneficiary is just somebody who gets benefits, and in this case, somebody who gets your death benefits. So the first option is the unmodified option. This is the option that the vast majority of people pick because it pays the maximum amount of retirement allowance to you, the retiree, while you're retired. To the beneficiary, what this pays is a 60% monthly continuance. Now, a continuance, that word just means a continuing payment. So as a retiree, you're getting a monthly payment. Then when you die, your beneficiary will also get a continuing monthly payment known as a continuance. And that's going to be 60% of whatever your retirement allowance was. If you have a service-connected disability, it'll be 100%. Now, your continuance beneficiary for the unmodified option can only be certain people who are eligible. So it can be a spouse or state-registered domestic partner, and you have to have married them or registered them at least 1 year prior to retirement in order to name them for a continuance under this option. Or if you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, you can name your minor children as your continuous beneficiaries. And they don't get a lifetime benefit. The spouse and domestic partner get a lifetime benefit. The children don't under this option. It stops at age 18. Unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and then it will continue until age 22, unless they get married or register a domestic partner with the state, and then it will stop. Now, if you don't have somebody to name as a continuance beneficiary, you can still choose the unmodified option, no worries. You can still name a beneficiary. It's just you can only name a beneficiary for a lump sum payment. And that lump sum payment is going to be basically the balance of your ACERA contribution account. So it's going to be all your employee contributions that you paid in through your career, plus all the interest that you've earned that we've posted to your account, minus all the retirement allowance payments that we've already paid you. One thing I'll say is that it will take us 3 to 5 years of retirement allowance payments to exhaust your account. So if you die after that first 3 to 5 years, there's not going to be a big lump sum in there left for your beneficiary because your account has already been all paid out. That's the bad news. The good news is that what that means is that everything that you paid into the retirement system throughout your entire career, we're going to give you all that money back within your first 3 to 5 years of retirement. And then after that, it's you're going to get paid for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It's amazing. If you live another 30 years, that's another 30 years of payments on top of the contributions that you've gotten back. So it's a really amazing thing to be able to participate in a defined benefit pension plan. You have a guaranteed retirement, and the reason that we're able to do that is because of the employer contributions, but mostly the interest that we earn. The interest pays for 3/4 of your lifetime retirement allowance. Okay, now that I've given my defined benefit pension plan spiel, there is a scenario where you named a beneficiary for a continuance at the time of retirement, but your continuance beneficiary dies before you do. Now, if that happens, you can name a new beneficiary, but not for a continuance. The only time that you can name continuance beneficiaries is at the time of retirement. So when you're naming a new beneficiary in that scenario, you're naming them for a lump sum payment. There are additional lump sum payments besides the balance of your account. There's the $1,000 that I mentioned earlier. There is any partial months of retirement allowance that we didn't get a chance to pay you yet before you died. There's a refund of prepaid medical premiums if you sign up for our medical plans, and so on and so forth. So there are some little amounts that a lump sum beneficiary would still get. And I got a comment from an attendee that says, it's a great benefit for being a public servant, proud of my time. Absolutely. And I just want to just take a second. Thank you for your service to your community, because you all don't get appreciated nearly as much as you should. So thanks for serving us. Option 1. This is the only option that never pays a continuance to anyone at any time. What this does is it pays a lump sum to a beneficiary that you name. For you, the retiree, this pays a little bit less than the unmodified option. What this does is, through some accounting magic, it extends that time that there's a balance left in your contribution account from 3 to 5 years to 10 to 12 years. So if you died within that first 10 to 12 years, there would still be an amount left in your contribution account to refund to your beneficiary. Okay, so that's what option 1 does. Okay, so the question is, if you die before your wife, and I'm assuming, since we talked about the unmodified option, and she's your continuance beneficiary, she gets the same amount of payment as you, only if you have a service-connected disability retirement. If you don't, if you just have the regular retirement, she's going to get 60% of whatever you were getting paid, and she'll get that every month for the rest of her life. Now, there is an option where she can get 100%, and that is option 2. Option 2 pays a lifetime continuance to a beneficiary, and it's 100% of whatever you were getting paid as a retiree. Now, this pays less than the unmodified option, and it's going to pay, the amount reduction is going to be based on life expectancy of your beneficiary. So in that example, if you named your wife and she's your same age and she has about the same life expectancy as you, maybe there's going to be less of a reduction. If she's younger than you, she's got a longer life expectancy, there's going to be more of a reduction. Okay, so it's based on the beneficiary's life expectancy. Now, in addition to paying a 100% retirement monthly continuance, this does one more thing. It expands the group of people you can name for a continuance benefit to anyone. It's not just spouse, domestic partner, minor children, it's anyone. You can name anyone as a continuance beneficiary. If your beneficiary dies before you do, we don't increase your retirement allowance. Your retirement allowance, whatever it's calculated to be at the time of retirement, is what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living adjustments. And again, if your continuance beneficiary dies before you do, you can name a new beneficiary, but for lump sum payments only. Option number 3 is the exact same thing as option number 2. The only difference is that it pays less to the beneficiary. It pays 50% of your retirement allowance to the beneficiary rather than 100%. But again, you can name anyone as a beneficiary. And all the same rules apply. Option number 4 is the only option where you can specify multiple beneficiaries for a lifetime continuance. So if you have 2 adult children, for example, you can't name them as a beneficiary under the unmodified option because they're adults, but you could name them for a continuance, each for a continuance under option 4. And you specify the dollar amount or the percentage that goes to each one. It doesn't have to be equal. And the reduction of how much less this pays to you is based on the life expectancy of the youngest beneficiary. But otherwise, option 4 is the exact same as options 3 and 2. So if you want to get an estimate of how much your retirement allowance would be under each one of these options and how much it would pay to your beneficiaries, what you do is you go to the benefit estimator, you run a benefit estimate for your scenario, you hit get estimate, you get the retirement benefit estimate, and just to zoom in here, now maybe this part makes a little more sense. This is your allowance under the unmodified option. under option 1, option 2, and option 3. And this is how much the beneficiary gets in each case. You're going to want to, going back to the estimator, you're going to want to make sure to put in the correct beneficiary info in here. And your beneficiary might already be in the dropdown if they're your current designated beneficiary for active death benefits. Make sure the date of birth is correct because some of them aren't, and that will throw off the calculation. Okay. So yeah, this is the retirement benefit estimate. Okay, so your question is, if your wife dies before you do, can you reselect your option to have your brother receive a benefit? No. Your only opportunity to choose your option is at the time of retirement, so you can't pick a different option later. So whatever your option is that you chose at retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life. Plus, your only opportunity to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement. So if you name your wife as your continuance beneficiary, and she dies before you do, you can name your brother as your new beneficiary, but only for lump sum death benefits. You can't name him for a continuance. So the answer is sort of yes, you can name him for lump sum death benefits, but not for a continuance. And no, you can't change your retirement option. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left to talk about medical, dental, vision. So we might go a bit over time. If you need to leave, that's totally fine. And like I said, this recording is going to be available within like 10 business days up on our website, so you can check out the end then. I've been talking a lot about guaranteed benefits, such as the retirement allowance, cost of living adjustment, death benefits. There are also this series of other benefits that are not guaranteed. They're also known as non-vested benefits. And they're extra benefits that at some point in the past, the county and your employers decided that the retirees needed this extra set of benefits to be able to pay for their lives in retirement. And so they started this reserve fund that pays for these benefits. Now, our Board of Retirement sets the benefit levels, and their goal is to ensure the fund's sustainability. So they might change what the benefits are. They might reduce the levels of benefits. They might change the rules around them. They tend to do that slowly. We have an actuarial assessment twice a year on how sustainable the fund is. Currently, it's considered sustainable because the projection is that it will last at least 19 years in the future, and the board's cutoff for determining whether the fund is sustainable is 15 years. And we have that projection every year. Okay. Currently, there's almost $1 billion in this fund, so there's a lot of money there to pay for these benefits. The benefits are currently subsidies for medical, and MMA stands for monthly medical allowance, so subsidies for being enrolled in our medical plans, subsidies for being enrolled in our dental and vision plans, a subsidy to help you pay for the cost of being enrolled in Medicare, and then a supplemental cost of living adjustment that is in addition to the vested cost of living adjustment. So let me talk about each one of these. The first one is the subsidy for being enrolled in our medical plans. This is called the monthly medical allowance. It's not guaranteed. All of these are not guaranteed. What this does is it offsets the cost of being enrolled in ACERA-sponsored medical plans, so no outside plans. And for our group plans, it will pay for premiums. For the individual plan options, it'll pay for premiums, copays, and deductibles. The amounts are set annually by the Board of Retirement, and any costs exceeding that amount, you're responsible for paying. And it's not available for your beneficiaries, spouses, survivors, dependents, former spouses. You get the subsidy, but nobody else gets the subsidy. But you can still enroll them in coverage. Here are the monthly medical allowance amounts for 2020. And these are actually going to be the same for 2021. The board just decided to not increase these for 2021 in order to ensure the fund sustainability. So it's based on number of years of ACERA service credit. if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, you're eligible for $289.33 per month. If you have at least 15 years, you're eligible for $433.99 per month. If you have 20 or more years of ACERA service credit, you're eligible for $578.65 per month. Okay, now think about those numbers, what the number might be for you. And I'm going to show you what the medical plan costs are for this year, and so you can kind of compare. So here's our medical plans. We have non-Medicare plans and Medicare plans. The difference is whether you're eligible for Medicare or not, and that usually starts at age 65. If you're not yet Medicare eligible, you would choose among these plans. If you're Medicare eligible, you would choose among these if you want coverage through ACERA. Our open enrollment is November of each year, but you can get right into one of these plans at retirement, and we will ensure that you have no gap in coverage, so you'll go right into one of these plans on your day of retirement. Okay, let me show you some of the details of each of the plans. The full details are in our enrollment guide that we publish every year, and you'll also get this in the mail every year. You can see a PDF copy out on our website. Okay, here are the non-Medicare group plans. I'll talk about those first, then I'll talk about the Medicare group plans, and then I'll talk about the individual plans for non-Medicare and Medicare together. So these are the non-Medicare group plans. If you're not eligible for Medicare yet, this is what you're going to choose from. This Kaiser Permanente plan that has a self-premium of $785.44, or these two United Healthcare plans. Now, this Signature Value Advantage plan is cheaper than the Signature Value plan because this is something the county negotiated. If you stick to this high-performing network of doctors and facilities, then you can be enrolled in this plan, and it's much cheaper. And I think this might actually get cheaper. They might. Well, I don't think they've negotiated that price yet, but we'll see what happens for 2021. So these are the self premiums. If you want to enroll self plus one or family, these would be the premiums that you're looking at. So you can see that even with the cheapest plan, Kaiser Permanente HMO, the 20-year monthly medical allowance doesn't cover it. You end up having to pay about another $200 out of your ACERA check. And the way that you pay for these plans, it goes in and out of your ACERA check. Okay, so if you enroll, this is a super simplified version of your ACERA pay stub. So you have your gross pay here. Then you have the deductions column. This person, for example, enrolled in the Kaiser Permanente HMO. So we deducted $785.44 out of their check. This person is also eligible for the 20-year monthly medical allowance. So we put $578.65 back into their check, and they end up paying the balance. So then their net pay is $3,793.21. This is super simplified. One thing I'll say about the MMA and all of these benefits, they're not taxable. So this is not taxable income. We have that worked out with the IRS. Okay. So those are the non-Medicare group plans. Now we have the Medicare group plan option. There's only one. It's a Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. And what I've done here is given you some additional numbers besides the premium numbers. So I put in a row for the 20-year monthly medical allowance because a lot of people are eligible for that. And I've subtracted out the monthly medical allowance from the premium amount just to show you what the out-of-pocket cost would be for you in each one of these scenarios. So this is just if you enroll yourself. And you'll notice for $1,154, that was not one of the monthly medical allowance amounts that I showed you. And it's because the monthly medical allowance only pays up to the amount of the self-premium. And you don't get to keep the change over that. And so what happens is this is your premium, and so you're eligible for the 20-year, but it only pays up to the amount of the self-premium. So this becomes your monthly medical allowance, and so the cost to you is $0. And what these Medicare plans do is you can just, if you want to, you can just take the straight Medicare coverage from the federal government. It offers a certain level of coverage. What the Medicare plans do is they offer a higher level of coverage. And so they sort of combine with Medicare to offer a higher level of coverage, but the federal government still pays for most of the cost of the plan. And if you have at least 15 years of a service credit, the monthly medical allowance pays the whole premium amount. So this out-of-pocket cost to you is zero. So it just makes sense to enroll in this plan or one of these Medicare plan options. If you're going to enroll self plus one or self plus one plus family, there are these different premium amounts and different scenarios for you. Okay, so those are the group plan options, non-Medicare and Medicare. What happens if you don't want to enroll in one of those group plans or you can't? What are your options? Well, you can enroll in an individual plan through this private insurance exchange called Via Benefits. So who can enroll? Well, if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you can enroll if you live outside of our group plan service areas. So we don't let you enroll in them if you live within those Kaiser and United Healthcare service areas. But if you live outside those areas, you can enroll in an individual plan. So that includes places out in California, but that are outside of the group plan service areas. And the group plan service areas are Southern California, San Francisco, Bay Area, Sacramento area, Fresno area, and for Kaiser Permanente, the Santa Cruz area. So if you move up to Redding or you move over to Chico, that's outside the group plan service areas, so you could enroll in one of our individual plans. Now, if you're Medicare eligible, you don't have to, you can live anywhere in the US. You could live in San Leandro and you can enroll in an individual plan. You just have to maintain enrollment in Medicare Parts A and B. Okay, so now that we've established who can enroll, what is it and how do you enroll? Well, Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange. What they do is they contract with 80 different insurance carriers. They provide 1,000 different plans. They connect you with 1,000 different plans. And what you do is when it's time to enroll, you give them a call or you can go through their website and you end up talking to a certified, salaried, non-commissioned benefit advisor. They help you narrow down your plan options. They're not, the reason that I emphasize all this is they don't care one way or the other which company you go to because they're not getting a commission. They're just going to narrow down the plan that's right for you. And so when you call them, you tell them where you're going to live, what kind of providers, even down to what doctors you want to visit, what kind of prescription drugs you need, and they'll help you narrow down your plan options to just a few, and then you can choose among those. Like what kind of coverage level you want, how much you want to spend, all that. So for the individual plans, if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, it not only pays premiums, but it can pay deductibles and copays for these individual plans, okay? Okay, I'll take that question in just a minute. Okay, so the way that you pay for these plans and the way that you get your monthly medical allowance for these individual plans is different. It doesn't come in and out of your paycheck like I just showed you. What happens is that Via Benefits will open up a health reimbursement account for you. So here's a Sarah, and we have your monthly medical allowance here if you're eligible for it. So we're going to send your monthly medical allowance over to your health reimbursement account at Via Benefits. Okay, now here's your bank account. You are going to enroll in a plan through a medical insurance carrier. You're going to owe them a monthly premium. So you're going to need to pay them directly. Here's a doctor. You're going to go visit a doctor. There's going to be a copay. So you're going to pay that doctor directly. So you're out some money here. You have some medical expenses. So in order to get reimbursed for those medical expenses, you submit reimbursement claims back to Via Benefits, and they'll pay you your monthly medical allowance out of your health reimbursement account back to your bank account. You can set up a lot of this stuff to happen automatically, to have this be a recurring payment, to have these be automatically deposited into your account, and they'll help you set all that up. And they also have an app and a website that you can submit your reimbursements electronically. And there's a question, do I need to choose a medical plan at the time of retirement or can I choose sometime after retirement? If you want medical coverage through Acera at the time of retirement, you would need to choose a medical plan. If you don't have to. Excuse me, medical coverage is optional. So you don't have to go into one of our plans at retirement. And then later, at open enrollment, you can enroll in one of our plans or with a qualifying event. So if you have a spouse that stops working and so they lose their healthcare coverage, which means you lose your healthcare coverage, that's a qualifying event. Or if you move, or like births, deaths, these are different qualifying events, and you can read the full list of them out on our website. So yeah, you can choose later, and open enrollment in November is your annual opportunity to choose different healthcare coverage. Now, for these individual plans, if you are a Medicare person, the plans are so cheap, the premiums are so cheap that the board decided to have a slightly lower monthly medical allowance set of amounts for the individual via benefits Medicare plans. So this would be the set of monthly medical allowance amounts you would be eligible for. Okay, option number 2. I'm sorry, benefit number 2, dental subsidy. So this is another non-guaranteed benefit. We offer you the option of enrolling in 2 different dental plans, the Delta Dental PPO and the Delta Care USA. This one is a nationwide plan. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit when you retire, and this is not including reciprocal service credit for any of these benefits. This is only Acera service credit that gets you over the 10-year mark and the other marks to qualify for these benefits. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to enroll in one of the plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. So the self-premium and the subsidy are the same amount. So for example, if you chose the PPO plan, $42.04 would be the premium amount that would come out of your check, and $42.04 would be the subsidy amount that would go into your check. If you want to enroll your Self Plus One, this amount would come out of your check, this amount would go back into your check, as long as you have the 10 years of service credit. If you have less than 10 years, you can voluntarily enroll and just pay your whole way. There's no subsidy. Vision coverage works very similar. Let's see. We have a question about this. So the question is, can you enroll and pay for your son's medical, dental, and vision if he's 22 years old and enrolled in school? Yes. The Affordable Care Act says that your children 25 and younger can maintain enrollment in your plan. So yes, you can enroll your 22-year-old son. Yes. So for the vision, again, if you have 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to enroll in the standard plan at least, but it doesn't cost you anything. This is the self-premium and the subsidy. Now, if you want to, you can enroll in the VSP premium plan, also known as the buy-up plan. That would give you a higher level of coverage. For example, you get frames every year instead of every 2 years, like you get in the standard plan. So you can buy up into that plan, but the subsidy is still going to remain $4.24. So you pay the difference between these two. And again, if you have less than 10 years of service credit, you can voluntarily enroll. And to answer your question, yeah, you can maintain. He can maintain enrollment until through 25 years, all the way until he turns 26. Okay, so this is going to go to the question that I got earlier regarding the cost of Medicare. Now, if you're Medicare eligible and you want coverage through Acera, or even if you don't want coverage through Acera, but you do want to enroll in Medicare, once you enroll in Medicare, the federal government is going to charge you a dollar amount for being enrolled in Medicare. And the lowest level, it is tiered based on levels of income, but the second level of income is kind of high. So most people end up paying $144.60 for 2020. So that's the monthly cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B. So Medicare Part A is hospitalization. Medicare Part B is doctor's visits. Medicare Part D is prescription drugs. So Medicare Part B has a cost. Even if you've been paying the Medicare system throughout your entire life, Medicare Part B still has a cost, $144.60. And if you're eligible to collect Social Security, they'll take it out of your Social Security check. Now, because if you want to enroll in one of our Medicare plans, we mandate that you enroll in Medicare. We're also subsidizing the cost of your Medicare Part B enrollment. And so the board's current subsidy is the same as the lowest level of Medicare Part B cost, which is $144.60. So you would get charged $144.60 from the federal government, and then you would get $144.60 from ACERA into your retirement check to help you cover that cost. And all you have to do is submit an enrollment form one time, and you have to maintain enrollment in Medicare Part B to be able to get that benefit. And to your question, that is separate from the monthly medical allowance. So you said that in the question, you said that you're eligible for the 10-year monthly medical allowance. Well, you're still going to get that monthly medical allowance amount to cover the cost of your medical coverage. Plus, you'll get this Medicare Part B reimbursement plan to offset the cost of what the federal government is charging you for being enrolled in Medicare. And the monthly medical allowance goes to offset the cost of what the healthcare plan is charging you. This offsets the cost of what the federal government is charging you. And then you have to have at least 10 years of a service credit to qualify for that. You're welcome. Okay. The final non-guaranteed benefit is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This helps you maintain at least 85% of your original purchasing power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement. What happens is you retire, you have a certain amount of buying power, but then every year there's inflation. There's like 3% inflation on average, and you start to lose your buying power, okay? The vested cost of living adjustment helps with that. It helps keep your buying power up. But eventually, most of our retirees lose so much buying power that it gets more and more increased and additive. And so if you ever in retirement lose at least 15% of your buying power, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original purchasing power. And it will just keep you at that for the rest of your life. So you'll stay at 85% of your original purchasing power. So you can't lose more than 15% of your purchasing power at any time in retirement. Okay. So last two things that I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about each one of these life events briefly. I only have one slide on this, and that's because some of these things don't apply to everyone. So I'm not going to go into detail about them, but I just want you to know that these are things that you might want to think about and explore more out on our website. So if you are going to quit before you retire, so that means you're going to defer your retirement, become a deferred member. Some of you are already deferred ACERA members, those people that are working in other jobs currently for other employers that have retirement through CalPERS. You're already a ACERA deferred member. Or if you're just going to stop working and not retire yet, just go ahead and read this page about being a deferred member. Okay. If you die before you retire, there are death benefits available for your beneficiaries. So if you want to learn about those, you can learn about those on our website. If you get divorced or dissolve your domestic partnership before or after your retirement, it can affect your ACERA retirement, because any retirement that you earned while you were married or while you were in a state-registered domestic partnership is considered community property in the state of California, and that is on the table for division when they're dividing the community property in a divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. So you're going to want to go to our website and learn more about that. Okay, next one is if you ever become permanently disabled and you can't perform your job duties, you can retire early. You don't have to wait for the regular retirement. You can retire through disability retirement. And there's service-connected and non-service-connected disability retirements, which is basically like you got hurt at work or you didn't. Like non-service connected is you're still disabled, but you can't perform your job duties, but it didn't happen with that in any way attached to your employment. So you're going to want to go ahead and read that section of our website, and then our disability unit wants you to go ahead and give them a call if you're considering disability retirement after you kind of go through that section. If you are going to work after retirement, I mentioned this earlier, if you go to work for anyone but our 6 participating employers, which includes Alameda County, we don't care. You're still going to be an ACERA retiree. We're going to pay you your ACERA lifetime monthly retirement allowance. You are, and then you can go do whatever you want. You can go work wherever you want. You're going to be working a job, and we're going to consider you a retiree and keep sending you your retirement allowance. However, if you do want to go back to work for your employer or one of our other participating employers after retirement, there are restrictions and duration limits to your ability to do that. So go ahead and check this webpage out on our site and learn about those duration limits and restrictions. And then finally, if you're going to relocate after retirement, if you're going to move, go ahead and fill out our address change form to change your address officially at ACERA, because that allows us to continue sending official correspondence, our annual report, and most importantly, our open enrollment packet that we send every year in October that has the changes in the healthcare plans. So we can't send it to you unless you change your address in our system. And then finally, the best way to keep up to date with what's going on at ACERA is to subscribe to our ACERA news service. You're not going to be inundated with emails. We hardly send out any news. We only send out important stuff, and you can choose the type of news that you want to get in there. So I highly recommend that. If you don't want to subscribe, though, you can just check our news page periodically. If you have questions, please feel free to call us anytime. Currently, we're only taking questions. We're only answering the phone on Tuesdays and Thursdays due to the pandemic, but we're about to move to a cloud-based customer service system where we're going to go back to taking calls 5 days a week. And so this is our phone number, 510-628-3000, and you just go ahead and call us anytime, and we have specialists there that are there and trained to answer any questions that you have. So with that, I wish you a beautiful retirement on behalf of ACERA staff and the ACERA board. You earned it. So I wish you a wonderful retirement, and thank you for spending time with me. And I wish you a beautiful retirement and a beautiful life. Thanks.